Welcome to this interview with our special guest, Lara McAllister. Lara, thanks so much for joining us.
Hi, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
You bet. Okay, so Lara and I taught in the same school district in kind of would you describe it as a rural area? Like it's not like it's a big city area,
No,
right?
definitely more rural. Yes.
Yeah. And then Lara went into, well, she taught second grade. Is that
Hmm.
right?
Yep.
Excellent. And then she went into instructional design. And she has interned at some really exciting places, and she has worked with multiple companies and organizations, and she's worked at universities as a course administrator overseeing all of their online education program, and as an instructional designer. So we're so excited to hear kind of the practical things, of what did you do in these roles, kind of get a tour of that, and then yeah, maybe a deeper dive into life as an instructional designer, what you do day to day. And yeah, excited to have you share any of it with us. So
Okay,
thank
great.
you.
Yeah. So like Ali said, I taught and then I actually went back to school at Brigham Young University and I studied instructional psychology and technology. It's a little bit of a mouthful. And while I was a grad student, I had the opportunity to intern at the Department of Education in DC in their Office of Educational Technology. And that was a great experience to be able to see kind of that higher view of education and policy. And then I also interned at Deseret Digital Media, working with them to put their face-to-face workshops into an online learning format. And those were both good experiences to see a little bit of what I was interested in or to just see how different organizations work. And I decided I wanted to stick with higher education. And so my first job was with Utah Valley University as an instructional designer. And I'll just give an overview and then we'll come back
Yeah.
and go into some
You
details.
bet, you bet.
And then I worked at BYU as a courses administrator. And then now I'm in Tucson at the University of Arizona as a senior instructional designer. So as an instructional designer in higher education, it's working with professors to put their course online. And so it's working with them. I mean, similarly to teaching, the focus is a lot on learning objectives and alignment and that backwards design. So thinking about what your end goal is. So what do you want students to be able to know and do at the end of the course? And then working backwards and making sure that assessments and assignments all align with that. And working in the LMS. So at two of the institutions we worked with Canvas, and currently at U of A, we're working in D2L, which is with Brightspace.
And sometimes if people are like,
Oh,
wait, D2L, that's desire to learn. It's a different LMS. And yeah.
yeah,
So
thanks.
question, before having these jobs, did you already know Canvas? Did you already know D2L? Because I know some teachers that are in our instructional design course, they're like, oh, I don't know this already. I can't apply to something because I don't know it already. But
Yeah, great question and legitimate concern. So I was somewhat familiar with Canvas because in my grad program, I had taken classes in Canvas. And before this job at U of A, I had no experience with D2L. And so I wouldn't be worried if you're not totally familiar with these. The great thing with Canvas is you can get a free account. So I would recommend if you are applying for a job or interested that you hop on a free account. The community is big. There's lots of tutorials and easy step-by-step instructions. And so I would play around in it a little bit because I think that is beneficial in selling yourself, letting them know that, yes, you do have some familiarity with an LMS.
great, great. Okay, so yeah, what are some of the things that you really enjoy about the work that you do as an instructional designer at a university, and kind of what is it like in the day to day? Or
Yeah.
if you want to take us through the different roles, obviously you've had a lot of different roles, which is so awesome. If you want to take us through some of the different roles in the day to day, yeah, that'd be
Oh,
great.
great. Yeah. So, okay. So some of the things that I like about being an instructional designer it's nice to still have that interaction with professors, and to see their different courses and to think about students and their success, because that's something I really enjoyed as a teacher. And the other nice thing too about working at a higher ed institution is you can take advantage of the learning opportunities on campus. So if I wanted to take more classes, or if I want to go attend a workshop, or there's just a lot of opportunities for professional development and growth, and they often encourage it, which is really nice. um, and day to day, so in my job now and at UVU, it was a lot of scheduling meetings with professors, talking with them about their courses, a lot of building in the LMS, so taking the content that they gave me and putting it in Canvas or D2L. A lot of and in my courses administrator job, it was some sort of technical support. I mean, if people had some Canvas questions, they were calling me to troubleshoot it, and or using me to get to some IT, or also overseeing things like ordering textbooks and kind of more of those logistics things, thinking about the long term uh, growth of the organization, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah. If you could take those two roles, so one is courses administrator and one is instructional designer, right? Because sometimes when a teacher or when anyone hears like, okay, I learned instructional design, I need to be an instructional designer, but really learning instructional design can lead to a variety of things. How would you describe like your work role? Here's what I did, not as an instructional designer, but as a course administrator. Like what were the roles and responsibilities with training, I don't know, like training TAs or
Mm.
helping people learn Adobe Connect, you know, like what, yeah, if you could kind of give a high level of that position that instructional design helped you land, that'd be awesome.
Yes. Um, so with that position, because it was over online courses, it was helpful to have known the instructional design side, to know how the hierarchy of the program worked. And I think too, having that teaching background was really helpful in supporting TAs and training TAs and working with professors and training professors, because I felt confident in teaching and understood, some best practices in how people learn. And so I was familiar with basic lesson planning. And so it was easy for me to put together a workshop or a training, because I had done that every day as a teacher on a different level. And so the instructional design reinforced that and helped me to know how online teaching and learning worked. And so then I could combine both of those, because these professors were face-to-face teachers. And so I could help them know, I understand what you're going through with the face-to-face level, but I've also experienced developing a course online. So let's merge those two, and with empathy, I'll help you walk through this. Because for a lot of professors, it's new, it's intimidating too. And so just reassuring them that you're there to help them and it's going to be okay. So I think both of those roles really helped me in that more leadership capacity, to help other professors in what they were doing.
Yeah. And I do think a lot of encouragement, is needed for those professors. And sometimes it's just taking the steps, it's let's just put your course online, let's work this through together. And so, yeah, being in that role of encouragement. And it's nice to hear the variety, if it's ordering textbooks or if it's, yeah, just a lot of different things that you do. It's not solely and exclusively building courses, but supporting others as well. Cool. So if we jump over then to your current role in Arizona as
Mhm.
an instructional designer or senior instructional designer, what are some of the things? Actually, will you tell us a little bit about when you worked at Utah Valley University as
Mhm.
an instructional designer? What did you do then? And were you a junior instructional designer? Oftentimes, there's not a distinguishing title, I know, but tell us about working there and working here, and maybe that'd be helpful for people to see the variety of things that people do.
Yeah, definitely. So at Utah Valley, I was in the Office of Teaching and Learning. So our office was supporting professors across campus in kind of all of their teaching and learning needs. And we worked with, so in both offices, we have a graphic design team, we have a media team, we have a tech team. And so I'm just one cog in the wheel. And so at my UVU job, it was a lot of same thing, just building courses. So working with professors and then being the liaison between the professor and the video production team. Um, Letting them know, hey, we want to record this lecture, and guiding them through that, or meeting with the graphic design team and letting them know, hey, we need these graphics or these icons. And we also were responsible for developing professional development courses, and we led workshops on building an online course. So we had professors come in, and we guide them through that, and then they'd meet with us one-on-one. So there was a little bit more variety with that because it was the Office of Teaching and Learning. um, my current job is the Office of Digital Learning. There's lots of acronyms in education, as we all know. But this current position is just for online courses. So it's students who are remote, who are taking classes online. There's a separate office on our campus that supports professors who teach face-to-face and online courses for students on campus. Um, and so my current job, also because I'm a senior instructional designer, is a little bit more management as well. So I have some employees that report to me, and I support them in their course development or any questions that they have. And then also go to leadership meetings and those sorts of things, making decisions about how we want to strategize moving forward. Um, but I still do have courses that I'm developing and designing. So also working with the video team or graphic designers or professors to build those. So,
That's so great. And I know this is encouraging for a lot of people in our instructional design course to hear, because in the course they get exposure to a variety of these things, right? But they can also go an inch deep and a mile wide. Like, I want them to see a lot of it. But I know some of them have been a little intimidated, like, whoa, do I have to do the graphic design or the video development or the course development and know all the techie side of it? And it's just nice to know, just exactly like you're describing, with some companies, some universities, some organizations, you are one part of the process. You don't have to be a one-man band that does it all, And at other places, like, some teachers really like doing the actual course development and actually working in the LMS. It's just nice to know that there's a place for everyone. If instructional design is what they want to do, it isn't just one job type, right?
oh, yeah, definitely not. I mean, each university has been slightly different. And even when I was at the Department of Ed, my two supervisors were instructional design graduates themselves, and they were, more on the policy side. Or, I mean, we know a lot of people who have gone the corporate side. I mean, did a little bit more of that. And so, yeah, there's a wide variety. And I think it's really just tailoring it to what you want and preparing those skills and seeking out those opportunities.
Yeah, it is kind of like a gateway, right?
Mm-hmm.
A good
Yeah,
gateway, a gateway
yeah,
into like a lot of different options out there. And so I know sometimes when people hear, oh, instructional design, like, well, some people are like, what in the world is that? Right.
right.
And sometimes it can be a little tricky to describe because it is so many different things. If it's helping create online courses, or if it's helping with the strategy for live trainings, or helping professors, there's just so many different work settings. If it's a university, if it's corporate, and so many other things. Yeah. So that's great. What tips would you give? Let's say, if you could give advice to yourself a handful of years ago when you were in Nebo School District and you were just starting to feel like, I think I need to be doing something else or continue to expand myself. Do you remember being in that? Was that a hard place to be? Or maybe you just went forward naturally and quickly and didn't hesitate much with it? But what was that time like? A lot of people a lot of teachers are currently in that circumstance of like, what do I do? And I just know I don't really feel that great. Anyway, what advice would you have for them?
Yes, you're not alone. It was definitely a hard spot because, as we all know, education is a very narrow field. I mean, there's pretty much only a couple of options, right? You're working in the classroom or you're working in the district or, something like that, especially with elementary education, which is what I studied. And so I did feel really nervous and felt like I needed to change, but didn't really know how to pivot. And I remember talking to a mentor professor that I had at BYU who just said, well, just keep going and the right doors will open. And I mean, that was great. I really appreciated it. But at the time too, I thought, well, what does that mean? What am I supposed to do? And so I just kind of started exploring some options. So I started going to some classes on campus in different programs. I started just talking with people that I thought their jobs sounded interesting, and asked, what they're doing and how they got there. And slowly found multiple people who had done instructional design and it just resonated with me and felt like a good fit because it built on what I had already been doing a lot as a teacher. And so I went forward with that. But I think I would just recommend exploring some options and seeing what sounds interesting to you and what skills are required for that, and either taking some classes or doing some online tutorials or whatever it takes to kind of build those skills. And stay positive, also realizing that timing is everything. I um, had applied for grad school and I got in, but felt like I needed to teach another year. And so I deferred my enrollment for another year, and it ended up being a great thing for me in terms of opportunities. So I know maybe right now you might feel antsy and unsettled, but it's okay if it takes a little bit of time to figure it out, because you want to do what's best for you and for the long run. So talk with people, explore options, build some skills, and doors will open. You'll figure it out.
That's great advice. I remember feeling, kind of frustrated with what you're saying and talking with people, and they're like, "Oh, just keep going." And I'm like, "This is all so vague. Somebody like throw me a line, like help me out. What do I do?" Did you feel like when you chose instructional design, or at least chose to take that next step, I assume it wasn't this really clear picture, right? It's not a
No.
really clear picture. It's a step and it's progress, but yeah, it just a continual progress of personal development and growth. So
Yeah, definitely. Well, and at that point, I don't think I totally knew what instructional design was either. And I didn't know what my end goal was. I mean, I did not anticipate working at higher ed institutions for years either. And those internships really just kind of happened, unfolded as the time went on too. So yeah, don't feel like you have to have necessarily a long-term plan and know exactly where you want to be and what you want to do. I think just one step at a time, and it'll present itself, or you'll figure it out.
yeah, I love thinking about how like it's a career path. It's not a destination. So on that same note, looking at where you are in your path presently and in your life path, right? Um, I guess if you were looking to your future, I don't mean to put you on the spot or to have
No,
this be
no.
really hard, but sometimes it's nice for teachers who are in the circumstance of like, I don't really know what to do next. Like where do you see things going forward? Do you think you'll stay at the university level? Do you think you'll ever want to work like remotely from home, or anything about your future path, or maybe take instructional design a different way of interest, anything like that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I would like to stay at this job at least for a few years. I mean, the way that my life has worked recently, I've just had a lot of changes. And so I wasn't at the other jobs as long as I had hoped or wished, which is fine. But so I'm hoping to stay here at least for a few years. And then I would like to explore some other options and see. It's been great to be in higher ed, but I mean, I would like to see what some corporate options look like or some working from home options look like. And the nice thing is with instructional design, because in my field, it is a lot of online learning. A lot of people do work remotely. And I mean, even currently at my job, we all work remotely at least, one day a week, some days more. But So yeah, I haven't quite figured out my next steps yet, but yeah, I think it's just important that it's always growth, um, not just letting yourself kind of stagnate and get too comfortable. But yeah, we'll see what comes next.
That's great. Yeah. And I again just think that's really encouraging for people to hear. So they're not, it's not like you just find this next job and the rest of your life is all set. It's a path. In some ways, I think we almost give ourselves more freedom after we experience that to like, oh, it's not this like in the classroom, one thing all the way to retirement. That sounds stable and it sounds consistent, unless if you are really wanting more and
Right.
whatnot. So good example with that. Okay, thank you so much for all your insights. This has been so, so helpful.
Totally. Yes.
Um, okay, a few questions from those who are joining us live right now.
Okay.
As far as you mentioned, advising with a professor and helping them choose what to put in their course. Can you give us maybe an example, something that happened recently or not recently, but if it's working with a biology professor or with a math professor? Yeah, any specific examples of something that was discussed and maybe a recommendation you have or what you guys did because of it?
Yeah. Definitely. So I'm trying to think of a good specific example. So hold on.
And we can come
Um,
back to it. Oh, okay. Great.
oh no, it's okay. Well, and one thing I wanted to also point out is they're the content expert. So no professor expects you to understand or know their content. They're just looking to you to understand the teaching and learning principles and tools and things like that. Because I know that was also intimidating for me, thinking, wait, I don't know all of these topics either, but you're not supposed to either. It's fine. Um, Okay, so I'm working with some global courses. So we offer some courses at some micro campuses around the world. And so was recently working with a professor who um, had some questions about um, what tools might work in some of these different countries, and we had done some testing and had talked with some people in these different countries to find that out. And so for me it was saying something along the lines of like, well, we're concerned about the bandwidth in these countries, and we've learned from data we've gathered from students asking them questions that it's best if the videos are between 5 and 10 minutes. And so letting him know, like, okay, so let's go through your topics and chunk your topics, and so that it's more realistic to have a video that's 5 to 10 minutes, and here are some things that you can talk about based on what content you've already given me. Or it might be something like maybe a professor feels like students in their discussion board are posting at the very end, and so there isn't that interaction between students, and so they're wondering how they could get students more involved. And so it's offering suggestions like, well, let's put a due date on Wednesday, so people post once on Wednesday and then respond to each other by Friday. Or recently, a professor had questions about testing, like what can I do other than having them monitored online while they're taking a test? And so I just offered some suggestions, like let's set a time limit so that they, can't just be pulling out their book and looking through things, or let's um, make a question bank so it's pulling multiple questions and so everyone's not getting the same question, or randomizing questions and answers, and so just simple things like that you also kind of just learn on the job as you go, and as you hear other instructional designers talking or learn from your own experience. So yeah, those are just a few different examples of times when I give them some advice on something, a question that they had.
That's so great. Those are awesome examples. Thank you. Yes. Really cool. And cool to hear about the micro campuses around the world. That's really awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, you referred to certain tools earlier, and I can link those when I post this in our LMS for those that are in our course. Can you
Oh,
list
great.
those tools? Someone is asking for the name of those tools again. Can you list those one more
Oh,
time?
yes. So VoiceThread is a video and audio discussion board. You can post a video or audio, and you can often post video or audio in a discussion board in the LMS too, but that's just one tool. VoiceThread. Panopto is what we use for videos. So if a professor is creating maybe their own video, or we're working on editing some things outside of the studio. That's one tool. Play Pause It is a tool where you can upload a video that's already been created and then put different interactions in it. So it'll stop the video and a question will pop up, and it can be a free response or multiple choice or something like that, and they can answer the question and then keep going. So it just makes the video a little bit more interactive and make sure that they're watching and listening. So those are just a few tools that we currently have licenses to at my university.
Great. Yeah. Interactive video I just love seeing the things that are, yeah, that come out and it's like, oh, we're taking it to the next level, you know? Yeah.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
teacher side of me, the effective learning strategist side of, like, I love all of that. That's
yeah,
so
it's
great.
great. Oh, one other, Adobe. So we do a lot with the Adobe products too. And we have we have a guy
Uh-huh.
who is over all of those too. So, once again, they don't expect me to know all the Adobe products, but nice to have some familiarity with a few things.
And okay, there's like a bajillion Adobe things, right? Like what are from Adobe's suite of options, which ones maybe like three top or two top ones that you use
Well, it kind of just depends.
on the
I don't
project?
really have, sorry, it's hard for me to like do a top three. I think
Yeah.
just having a knowledge of, so if there's one, speaking to the audience, so if there's one that you find interesting, great, like learn a little bit more about it, be confident and familiar with it, because I don't think it's as much which tool, but like what you know how to do with it and how it's going to help you or how it's going to help students or instructors. Because for some people, Photoshop is something that they really like, but for other people, InDesign does it better for them. Or like you were saying earlier with like Adobe Captivate or so yeah, I think just having a familiarity is good.
Great. Excellent. And I think, speaking to those in the course, the project or, what it is you're working on is going to lead you to, here are the tools I need for this, right?
Right.
Instead of feeling like, okay, I need to learn every tool out there before I can apply to a position, right? So it's kind of the other way around. So that's great. Okay, coming to some of the questions. Let's
Sorry,
see.
one more thing with that, with
Yes.
what you just said as you're looking up questions, because one of the big things in the field too is not just using a tool for the sake of using the tool, but like, are you purposefully using the tool? Like, is this tool the best in terms of reaching the goal and back to that alignment, right? So, yeah, just having purpose in why you're using a tool and for what.
Excellent. This is so great. Okay, I'm just scrolling through some of our questions. Okay, the learning management system. Yep, that was Canvas. And yep, that is an LMS. And the one that she uses now at U of A is Desire to Learn by Brightspace, or D2L as people call it. Okay, here are some other questions. Lara, did you know someone at these universities that helped you land your job? Sometimes it's who you know, or did you just shoot a resume out cold?
Great question. So a little bit of both. So at UVU, I knew someone in the office, but not necessarily on the team. And I actually had a friend who had applied for the position, and I thought, oh, me too. So I did. I did know someone there. In my current job, I didn't know anyone. I just shot out a application, and it worked out. So I think in terms of maybe getting a first experience, it might be helpful to know someone who can help you and mentor you through, but don't feel like you need to know someone every time.
Excellent. That's great. So much of it, I think, is connections, and I think sometimes people think, grad school is going to give me the connections. And for some people, if their school is well networked like that, that can be the case. But if you do know people, or if you can network effectively, yeah, and our course can definitely be a great source for networking for people also. And now you're kind of part of people's network as well.
Oh
So
yeah,
that's great.
definitely.
Okay, here is another question. This might be too much of a brag question, but were there any general things you feel like you've learned or mistakes or tendencies from the beginning that you've noticed in yourself or in other instructional designers who are just starting out?
That's a great question. Okay, so tendencies or mistakes that I learned early on. Um, yes, one thing. So I think, so as a teacher, you want to be really creative and you're thinking of all of these great ideas. Um, and as an instructional designer, it's important to be creative too. But I think for me, I was thinking a little bit too hard about it. I think I kind of overcomplicated things for myself, and I thought, oh, I need to have all of these activities and all of this content and all of these things, and realized that, I mean, simple is often better. I mean, I think it was also just the transition of learners, right? Like young learners are different than adult learners. And so I think that's one thing I noticed with myself. In terms of other instructional designers, I think too, similarly, understanding how to work with professors, how to work with others. Um, I'm trying to think of how to describe that. And this also just comes with experience, but I think realizing what motivates people and what doesn't motivate people, because sometimes it can be, um, you can feel confused, like, oh, how can I help this professor, or how can I get them motivated? But I think helping them realize you're on their team and that you're here to help them, and not just trying to like overtake their course and tell them everything that needs to be different and better. So I think those are just a few things, if that makes sense, that I would think about as you're starting out, simplifying and how you can interact with professors in an effective way.
That's great. It also just reminds me of kind of how we've been mentioning, like, you don't need to know all of it,
Yeah.
to, yeah, to get started. And
No. And I feel like a lot of it is the soft skills, like talking with people and problem solving and, asking questions and those sorts of skills that you learn a lot as a teacher, because you're constantly working with parents and administration and students and things like that too. So I think really capitalizing on those soft skills that you have and are, continuing to develop.
excellent. So great. Okay, here is another question. In your current position, would you welcome a student to intern in order to gain experience? Is that a normal request? Great question.
Yeah, that
All of
is a
these are
great,
great questions.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Do they take interns or just new hires?
I'm uh They do take interns. The one thing with education, as we're all familiar with, is there isn't a whole lot of money in education. It's not like industry, and so an internship may not be paid in that sort of sphere. But I know but it depends, because some may. I know when I was at UVU, we brought in an intern for this summer, and I think it was a paid position for her, and she was a grad student and helped us with some basic tasks. In my current one, I know that we hire some students, but I'm sure that that our director would be willing to have someone come in and try some things out and do some mentorship. So yeah, I mean, I think it's worth exploring, and whether they're paid or not will vary from institution to institution. But I think most places are willing to let you come and learn and try, or at least talk with someone.
Excellent. So let's say someone wants to, let's say that there's a teacher and they're like, okay, I want to do something like this. How would you recommend that they reach out, like maybe during their summer break, just being like, hey, I am an experienced educator. I know these tools. I have experience with Addie and all of these things. Are there any projects that I could do for you over the summer, or for a solid month or something like, yeah, what would you recommend as far as reaching out or anything like that?
Yes. So I would. go online and decide what institution that you're interested in getting in touch with and finding the director. So like at UVU, the director of the Office of Teaching and Learning, or, at BYU, the director of BYU Online. Or I'm not familiar with Idaho schools, or at U of A, the director of my Office of Digital Learning, and reaching out to them and exactly what you said, letting them know what skills you do have and that you're interested in learning more and, would love to be able to help with projects or shadow to begin with, or, just letting them know who you are, what you can do, and what your time constraints are. Like, hey, I have this summer, I'd love to help. Um, and then they'll funnel you to who can help you. But generally, I think it would be the director that would make that sort of decision. You could even find maybe their assistant. I would probably, if they have one, listed online too. But
Great.
yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Okay, excellent. Okay, another question. Lara, do we need to have a graduate degree in instructional design? Do you work with people that don't?
Yeah, that's a great question. So no, you don't have to have a graduate degree in instructional design. There are quite a few people who have a graduate degree in something related, whether it's instructional design or educational technology. Um, in terms of an instructional design position, at least at my school, they want you to have a master's in something. We have course support specialists that do similar things, but are more on the support side, and they don't have master's degrees, so they don't have specific instructional design degrees. And some of them have even moved up from course support specialist to instructional design. But at least at a higher ed institution, I would recommend having some sort of master's degree to do ID.
Yeah, that is something I definitely see with universities, and kind of makes sense with the culture of a university that they would also be like, we're a university. Degrees are our bread and butter. You know what I mean? Like,
Right,
and that's
right.
that's basically how they make their money as well. Not that they're
Yeah,
in it for the money, but yeah.
right. But I know a lot of institution or corporate where that's not necessary. So I think it
Right.
just depends.
Well said. Yeah, so true. Okay, another question. What does Lara think set her apart from other candidates to get her jobs?
That's a good question.
You're like, I don't know.
I'm
Good
not sure.
question.
Maybe I should go back and ask all these people. Um, Oh, yeah. Let's see. I think with my current job, because I didn't know anyone, I think it was just the fact that I did have experience. I think at other institutions and in instructional design specifically, I think early on, I think it was probably that I had, some basic knowledge, but also tried to share the attitude that I was willing to learn and, was enthusiastic about education. Um, and uh, yeah. So I think at the beginning it was just that, but later on was more of the experience.
Great. Excellent. Willingness to learn. Excited about it. It's great.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to hop to a question that someone submitted a few days ago in case they wouldn't be able to attend. Okay, here we go. Did you feel like it was necessary to have connections at the university? We kind of already talked about that because you had connections at the first one or two, but not at the third. We've talked about what your day looks like at work. Okay, what do you enjoy most about what you do? Yeah, that will be our next one. What do you enjoy most about what you do?
I love that it's still student focused, that it's still education and helping teachers. And I like it's. I mean, it's fun to learn different content and to see what's happening in these other classes. I mean, I'm kind of a nerd and would love to take a class in everything, and so it's kind of fun to get that without having to do the work myself. And so that's been enjoyable. I think also, I mean, it is nice to have an avenue to learn new tools and to see what's happening in industry. So that kind of lifelong learner, because things are constantly changing. It kind of forces you to be that way. So I think those are some of the things that I liked already before, and kind of just have sought out or capitalized on now.
Excellent. Okay. And then another question of, and this is one of our last questions, unless if anyone submits anymore, of as far as what to have in your resume or in a portfolio, what would you recommend if a person is looking to work at a university?
Yeah, great question. We're just trying to hire some people, and so this is fresh on my mind based on conversations that we were having with other colleagues. Um, Often they're looking for some level of experience in whether it is a tool or an LMS or course design of some sort. So even if you're a teacher and tried um, some sort of blended model with your class one day or one week, or also looking for do you okay, sorry, now I'm trying to think of some of the things that we talked about. So yeah, some experience with tools, some experience with course design, maybe some experience with higher ed. Like, have you, I don't know, I'm trying to think of examples from like transitioning over as a teacher. Have you, shadowed an instructional designer, or did you take okay, so for me, it's online courses, right? So did you take an online course, or did you, help design or develop or build something curriculum related? We, or yeah, I, sorry, that's not a very good answer. I was trying to think of, because we did have some teachers who applied for these positions, and it was great because we understood that they, knew the basics of curriculum and alignment. But I guess wanting to see that they did have, in addition to that, kind of the tech side or the higher ed side, or something else in addition to that still related to this higher ed ID job.
Great. So bring your teacher skills, bring your education skills, but show us that you're familiar with an LMS, that
Yeah.
you've got a Canvas account.
Mm-hmm.
Show us that you've tried something in Storyline, or or that you've made a course online. Now, I mean, I don't think they're going to ask, well, how big was your audience size? All of these teachers are teaching online right now for their students. And so if they create anything, that's like, here's how we're going to do our online lessons, you guys, that gives you so much credibility. Like, what a great thing to have on your resume. But is there anything else that you would say, or maybe that any of those teachers had on their resume that made any stand out from the other? Or I guess it's just, the tools, the things that you've already mentioned, bring your teacher skills, but show me
Mm-hmm.
that you've got something.
Yeah, and I think exactly what you just said. So yeah, if you have ever or do ever teach, online or remotely, letting them know I put my course in Canvas, and this is what I did to make it interactive for students. But yeah, like you said, they don't care about the audience size. But just that you also have experience of starting working with a project from beginning to end. So, you saw it at its inception, and then you wrapped it up, which is easy as a teacher, right? I mean, you're often seeing things from beginning to end. But also having those kind of standalone, like you were saying, like, oh, I built this, one thing in Storyline, just shows that you have some versatility, that you're willing to try some new things, and can stand on your own too. Because, in hiring someone new, they're happy to train you. They want to support you, but they also want someone that they know can work independently and that they don't have to hold their hand every step of the way. So just letting them know that like you're a confident and competent educator is always a good thing.
We had one other question, and this is a great question, because this is really where a lot of our audience is right now. So she said, I can see how teacher skills are transferable, but the thing I'm wondering about is getting past the learning curve. and like the difference between K-12 and a company or university level training. I can tell it's something I could be good at. I'm just not sure how to get to that point. So a teacher's in her classroom, or I guess right now teaching from home, right? And they can see, here's instructional design, here's kind of how it's similar, but how do I get there? And we've mentioned like, okay, learn some of these tools, add these things on your resume and whatnot. And we've seen that with some of our course members who've already landed jobs. They just did their first thing in Storyline, had it on their resume. It was posted on careerbuilder.com, right? And anyway, or wherever people are posting their resumes, and someone saw it and hired them. But yeah, if someone's trying to bridge that gap from classroom teacher to instructional designer, how would you help them? Yeah, build
Yeah.
that bridge.
Yeah, that's a good question. And it can seem intimidating. One thing I'd also recommend is taking, and that's, I guess, what they're doing too with this, is taking an online course. I know right now, in addition to that, there's lots of options online. I mean, Coursera has some free ones, or I'm sure, maybe your local university has something too. But kind of helpful to see that user experience and see what those teachers are doing and how they're doing it, um, because it really is not too much different from what you're already doing. Like, yes, it feels that way, and yes, it is, because little kids are different than adults, but at the same time, like, not too much different, honestly. Like, so I think, in addition to maybe taking some courses of your own to see what that looks like, um, and knowing those tools, maybe also reading up on what motivates adults versus children, and thinking of yourself and your own experiences and how you like to learn and what that looks like, um, and just kind of transitioning. So if you are, I'm trying to think of some examples of activities we did in K6. If you're having you're reading and discussing something with kids, you're going to read and discuss things with adults too. It's just going to be different questions and different books, and different ways to do it. So I think bridging the gap is just being exposed more to adult learning, and what that looks like, and just pivoting, because it's a lot of the same principles and perspectives, I think. I don't know, Ali,
Yep,
what?
100%.
Okay.
Absolutely. Especially in certain roles. Like you're saying, you're like, teachers come to me and they're like, I don't know how to, have this be an engaging learning experience. And I say teachers, but really professors are the subject matter experts, right? They're good at their content, but they don't always know how to relate something clearly or teach something clearly. So I think everything you've said has been, encouraging for people to hear. This is, what you did as a teacher, and just that example that you just barely gave, and the really practical, very clear information that you've given of, here's what I do day to day. Here's what Canvas looks like. It's not that intimidating. You just click add a module and click, okay, now let's have a class discussion. Okay, now here's some information or whatever. So I know this has been really, really helpful for everyone. So
Yeah, thanks.
yeah,
Sorry, I have one more thing with that too.
absolutely.
I think too, when you're in the midst of other experts in your field, like as a teacher, you're surrounded by teachers who have been teaching 20 years, or, teachers who have been teaching 1 year. At least for me, it was easy to feel like, what do I really know? What can I really contribute? And also moving into instructional designer position, like, do I really know enough? I'm working with these professors who have been teaching their craft for 20 years and they're amazing. But realizing that you do have something to offer, because like Ali was saying, I mean, these professors are content matter experts. A lot of them didn't go to school to learn how to write learning objectives and how to, create assessments or engaging activities. And so realizing that you're helping them provide that perspective. And so it is that team, you do have something to share, and you do have that experience and knowledge, even though sometimes it may feel like, well, what do I really know? But they didn't learn what you learned. They haven't, had that distinct instruction or practice or um, experience. So trust yourself and what you know. You do know a lot. You have a lot to share.
That is so good. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. Because I know a lot of teachers, and they're even commenting and saying like, thanks so much for everything that you shared. Um, sometimes it can just feel like, oh, well, I'm just a teacher, but hello, that's like educator skills. It's everything that Lara's been saying. Like, that is what's valuable. That's why they're reaching out to you. That's why they need you. So yeah, thanks for encouraging them to have confidence in what they're
Yeah.
contributing with that. So
Yeah.
excellent. Well, thank you. Like, personally, thank you. And thank you as everyone's saying, commenting with thank yous as well. And just for your example of having the courage to follow your gut, to go beyond the classroom, and to continue to share your influence and your skills in your sphere of influence in different roles in different ways. So
Thank you. This has been great, and it's something that's near and dear to my heart because I mean I think you and I have had conversations about this many times over the years. So thanks for having me. It was great to be able to share and to be able to reflect on my own experience too. So
great,
good luck to everyone out there. It'll work out. Just keep
great.
trying.
Okay, and I will share the contact information that you sent so they can reach out to you as well if and when
Perfect.
needed. So okay,
Sounds
thank you so
great.
much, Lara. We'll be in
Yeah,
touch.
you're welcome. Okay.
Okay, see
Bye.
you. Bye bye.